aside from getting hung up on the fact that I don't know everything, and I have a tendency, I guess, to play up the intelligentsia or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's possible. I wanted to talk about invention, the cell phone lithium battery, right? That thing, if you get water on it, or if you open it like some way, like it can start steaming up and catching fire. It'll catch fire, right? So that's invention with an element inside of it. But there was these USB ports that goes to like a monolithic energy. That's all we can call it, is energy. And like, it's possible that we accepted an inferior technology, or that we just have to go through all the elements, because the invention that had water in it is the ibis and the solar boat, and it's a economistic where we get neurolinguistic programming for to apply to economy. Like, economy is volume and displacement of mass and volume. The displacement of mass and volume with the 357 Fibonacci ratio retracement, after having been submerged, and it's the solar boat has to be leveraged up to the surface, because I guess there's an organ of a lotus that traps air and pulls it underwater. And then that, I guess it builds up, or something has to do with the moon or something, where it turns over and it starts to use that buoyancy to leverage its economism to bring a submerged solar boat to the surface, right, where it'll open up, and then it says 357 Fibonacci retracement that the water pours out, and then it's at the up. It has to be very exacting to the last moisture that falls off of the, and it has to be resistant to. So the fact that it's locked out, it's got air, it's a seal. It makes it extra buoyant. But then the ibis comes crashing down to dance on the lotus block, on the lotus pad, to test support for to test resistance for support, just like the financial the market evaluating assets, and it's what's being evaluated, and it's a business model. So there was leverage, then there was testing for testing resistance for support, and the 357 Fibonacci retracement, and you can evaluate when there's a pattern. So you look for a pattern to evaluate an asset, and the pattern that we found is a naturally occurring, as something referred to as Isis moon sisters, the ibis. Isis is the moon goddess, right? Ibis on the solar boat, Isis. And then guess what ISIS does? They blow up fucking Buddhists and shit. They will go look for shit that's not their version of Islamic and try to erase in history. There's a fucking USB port to a monolith. We can recognize it because we make USB ports to cell phones. That's why we know what it is, right? But it's to an invention that has land in it. It has earth. It's earth in as the element that is fundamentally incorporated in the invention, right? I know it's like, this sounds like a racist or something like that, because we're gonna blame white people for putting fire in the invention, but there's one more, and it's air. It's like, so it's we got like what was it? It went from air to water to earth to fire, and the next one is going to be air again. Air. And so, like, I'll tell you, there's an invention that has air and water. It traps water in the air, and it's a mesh. It's a mesh. They put these things up in arid desert colonies. In the morning, the congealing water will trap, and it will start to run down and around, like all through this. It traps it in, and then it's like run down into a cup, and you can drink it, and it's an invention with air. You know, it's like I know it's like hard to put it in order, and I guess people, that it's a little challenge for people to do it. You know what I mean? It's not like, I can understand why people don't want to talk about parthenogenetic replication anymore. I understand that. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, because at some point in time, it's just feminosity that didn't even require that masculine half of the divine feminine aspect, right? Because at some point in entropy, in order to populate, because man was ethereal and not physical, and looking for conditions that we could live, but you could live, you can't stay. So it's like striking up in accordance. And then we had to fight off some of the species that made it inhospitable, you know. But at some point in time, we were not physical, and we found a location where as a Vesica Pisces, life can happen, right? So we're like, oh, life can happen here. So the conditions are right, and we could live. And then we became physical through the 7 ethereal waters of noon, right? And then you get 12 hours of the duat, or 12 hours of the day, right? And I'm not, I don't really care about emotionally about pantheism. I don't care emotionally about these stories where they pan out in science. I don't really give a fuck. You just can't tell me any shit no more. They just can't, you can be disparaging about, because I feel like it's inferior or you're inferior or anything. It's entropy. And it was a problem for the dynastics too, because they like to consolidate power so effectively that they got more fans. Like, you have more fans and an elongated chin. And you jet when you put your chin over. I don't know. Morphin syndrome. Oh no. See, if I was racist, then why would I be insisting that there was some inbreeding going on in Africa? Shit, we invented gay people. I mean, no, it's not we, but I mean we, because I guess you know, I think it was a worldwide consciousness grid, so I don't really think about the origin of Africa so much, as I think that the whole planet was populated by conscious beings with the third eye that were Tamoankan, which just means ancestor. And if you go back before that, it was some gods that were here. If you were to ask those ancestors, because we're ancestors too, but if you were to ask those ancestors, who was here before you, I know they would tell you it was some gods. I didn't make this stuff up either. So I'm not making this stuff up to take credit for it. I'm not trying to say I'm smart and shit. I just think there's gonna come a point with this that it's the funniest damn thing that happened, not something that you thought that you had to do to break free from the construct that we're in, and that you can, that we don't got shit nothing to worry about, you know. But I mean, it seemed like an immense amount of suffering over much ado about nothing. On some level, you're gonna come down to with hysterics and people forking off on a like, it's a business model of economism where you evaluate assets so that you can have an increased position, so that it just, all it does is put you in a position to evaluate other assets, because you're a right, because by way of evaluating those assets, you try to have a capture rate, you try to absorb a certain amount of wealth, and then that is the same thing as security protocols, custody solutions, and all these things. So then you're coming up with risk averse solutions, and that in itself is an asset too. So you're making an asset on the side, you're creating an asset on the side by evaluating an asset. You know what I mean? You don't actually use money. You don't actually really, like, it's not the same thing as using like paper money and shit. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, it's market making and creating permission trustless venues for you know, with the having is for a mass amount of commerce to go down without a point of failure. You need to reduce points of failure in currency. So it's not about just automizing everything. It's about depersonalizing money. If you look at it as like one, it could be like an effect of the other, but not a harbinger to let you know that everything's a train wreck. It's just that you can perceive that if everything is automated, that we go into a Orwellian society, and that's true. But that's without depersonalizing money, because currency isn't synonymous with a vote. A vote is governance. So you get governance from the currency. It should be inclusion in the same. Just because you can't hold it in your hand, don't trip off that. You have custody solutions, and you have it's just code, security protocols, encryption. We're going that way. They're going that way. After I die, it's not going to be my problem no more. I don't want to fucking think about that shit forever. Yeah. It's just, and that's the way that we're going. And I thought that was all right, Spider, if I said that it was, because you told me that it's all right, Spider, if like humanity follows the course of the technology behind the seal.